The last thing you want to do is send police officers into a place where good-hearted people are just sitting there minding their own business watching cars burn. I wish I didn't effectively almost just quote ABC 7 News in Los Angeles because that is how it was categorized. If you don't believe me, watch this.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Okay. I would like to ask this particular gentleman, how do you think the cars caught on fire? They're just minding their own business, watching the cars burn, and President Trump wants to send in law enforcement. That's beyond me. Oh, did they get lit on fire by violent protesters? Is that how the cars were lit on fire? And by the way, even if it was just a peaceful act, when are we okay with cars just being lit on fire? I don't know who this guy is, and I almost in a way don't want to know because it's difficult for me to know that people are out there and they exist among us that are this incredibly and monumentally stupid. But at the same time, I would like to know not where he lives, but what he might do if his car was lit on fire. If this guy is in his probably gated community in Los Angeles, actually specifically probably in La Cañada, and if you don't know Southern California, that is the place where all of the news anchors live for some reason. And I'm not trying to dox this guy, just that's probably the realistic area where this dude lives. But if you're in your gated community and all of a sudden, oh, your car is ablaze. Who knows how that could have happened? I don't know. It's just spontaneously combusted. Maybe the drummer for Spinal Tap was sitting in your car for some reason. Again, wow, very, very distant and old reference there, but if you get it, maybe it's funny. Well, the car just spontaneously combusted, and the last thing you want to do is call the cops. So, of course, if this guy's car is just sitting on the street minding its own business and poof goes up in flames, clearly he wouldn't call the cops. That could be dangerous. The car, and because what if people were just sitting there watching it? Well, like what if people had their lawn chairs out and around, and you walk outside, you open your window, your car's ablaze. The last thing you want to do is call the cops. It's just the people are just watching cars burn. The CNN people had their whole fiery but mostly peaceful protests with the dude in the background just made the meme. ABC anchor, whoever this guy is, basically said, "Hold my beer. Watch this." But the LA fires continue to go in hayward direction. This is another reporter. I forget. This is also ABC 7. I'm not entirely sure. Watch this and we will discuss. Again, mostly peaceful, just watching the cars burn.
Demonstrations had been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking their horns. And again, they were expressing their anger about the detention of so many immigrants at the Federal Center. Most of the evening, the federal agents stayed inside the building, but at a certain point, some of the demonstrators got very close to the property. In fact, some of them went onto the property, started tagging the building, started banging on fences, and shortly after all that happened, the agents started firing off tear gas, and then they came.
Oh, they're mostly peaceful. Literally said mostly peaceful. If I were a lib news anchor reporter person, I would just have that in my lexicon of things to not say. You have to know that conservatives, people with eyes, know that mostly peaceful is a joke. It's an online, like, clearly it's not peaceful. If I were a lib news reporter, I would have that known and avoid saying it at all costs. The protesters here are mostly peaceful, except for they were attacking a federal building. Dude with a skateboard was smashing windows to the police department in LA. But it's mostly peaceful. By the way, that's an argument that's actually being made on the lib side of the aisle. Most people are peaceful. Okay, well, the peaceful people need to completely and entirely separate themselves from the rioters, because the rioters need to be rounded up and thrown in jail, throw the book at them, ruin their lives, as some people have been saying, and I agree with that. The peaceful protesters, sure, go get your permit, because you have to have a permit to protest in the streets in LA, and go protest peacefully. Go ahead, do it. But unfortunately, that is not the case. That is not the case that it is happening where the quote unquote peaceful protesters are separating themselves from the radical maniac rioters. And therefore, I'm not sure how much sympathy I can have with people even saying, oh, they're mostly peaceful. By the way, most people are peaceful most of the time, even criminal and rioters. Yeah, I don't know, the murderous criminal illegal who was probably sitting on his couch when ICE raided through. Hey, he was being peaceful then. Does that make it okay? No, it doesn't. What he did, no, it doesn't. If you commit a crime, you don't get just go, no, I'm peaceful now. I'm peaceful now. It's just ridiculous. Let's see. Let's wrap it up here with Mayor Karen Bass, who is a lying hack. But who do you think she blames for the riots continuing in LA? If you are familiar with anything that I've ever done, you probably already have a guess. It is the guy with the flowy golden hair, Donald Trump. Watch this.
Well, I just have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern, because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so it's just a recipe for pandemonium that is completely unnecessary. Nothing was happening here. Los Angeles was peaceful before Friday. When we find out when and where the other raids are going to happen, that will determine how the police respond.
Yeah, to me, it kind of sounds like she's egging on protesters, rioters to, hey, if you see ICE somewhere, hey, the people, they've got their system set up and they're going to go do all of the things that they've been doing, which is rioting and damaging property and injuring people and threatening the lives of police officers. So Karen Bass, that's totally fine with me. And also, again, who they blame here? Oh yeah, well, if they didn't need to do the raids, then none of this would happen. Newsflash: California is a sanctuary state, so you wouldn't have to do as many raids if you cooperated with federal immigration. If you don't know California's sanctuary policy, so the local law enforcement is not allowed to coordinate with federal immigration. So if local law enforcement picks up a dude who's committed a crime, oh, this is an illegal, they are not allowed to act. Even if ICE calls them and says, hey, we're looking for this dude, do you happen to know where he is? He just murdered his wife and kids and 7 other people in the house party. Can you let us know where he is? We'd like to deport him and get him out of the country or try him for whatever. California local law enforcement would say, nope, can't help you. Why? Well, because we love harboring criminally illegal aliens. And for that reason, unfortunately, I laugh, but it's an unfortunate situation. Because of that reason, the California system lets people go, because there's also like a no cash bail thing here, and it's a bunch of little convoluted nuanced things, but the main broad picture is they let people go, and then ICE then has to go find them again. So if California didn't have these ridiculous sanctuary policies where they can't coordinate with federal immigration, they release criminals back into the public, and ICE has to go recapture them, i.e. do raids. So you want to get rid of raids, I don't know, maybe cooperate with something that literally everybody agrees on. I think there was a Pew Research poll out there that was like 95% of Americans, not Republicans or Democrats, just Americans overall, would support some sort of deportation for criminals who are in the country illegally, which it's a 90-10 issue. Most people overwhelmingly are like, yeah, this is getting criminal illegals out of here is fine. It's going to be fascinating to see. I've heard a couple pundits talk about, yeah, now the big boys, Antifa types, bad people are starting to flood into LA to be able to capitalize on the chaos. And that is not going to be fun to watch. We hope and pray that all the officers there are safe and remain safe. And holy cow, you need to crack down hard on all of these people, because you can't have lawlessness. You need a society that is able to conform to the laws at hand, and even then some. So, going to be fascinating seeing what's going on in Los Angeles. Stay tuned. We'll have the latest in breaking, but also probably the news of yesterday today. As far as we are able to do whatever it is that we're doing. We'll see you next time.